Hello and welcome back to my channel. It is me, Dana G, and tonight I am going to be talking about a project I've been working on for a little over 2 years. Plus, I'll be revealing the answer to the question, what do Edgar Allan Poe, Gertrude Stein, Beatrix Potter, Rudyard Kipling, Mark Twain, and Walt Whitman have in common with me? And the answer may surprise you. But first, I'm going to ask you to hit the subscribe button, click the little bell so you'll get notifications when I upload videos, and like and share this video with all of your friends and family. So tonight I am talking for the first time in depth about my book, The Awakening, Love Eternal, Book 1. And it's 1 because it's the first book in a series that started off as a standalone and has grown over the last 2 years into an actual series, which is actually really cool. But the number one question I keep getting asked is, what is your book about? And for the longest time, I would sit and I would think about what my book was about, and the vision I got in my mind, I just expected everyone to see it, like, well, here it is, don't you know? And so it took me a while, and I actually had to think about what my book was about, and write it down on paper, because it was amazing to me how for 2 years, I've been working on this book. I've been going through outlines, and then I've been trashing certain parts and adding to certain parts, and, you know, taking from here, giving to there, just so that it would be 110% awesome. But I couldn't quite find the words to describe what my book was about. So today I'm going to stumble over my 2 left feet in an attempt to explain what The Awakening, Love Eternal is about. The Awakening, Love Eternal is an adult fantasy romance. It's an adult book because there is graphic adult content in it. There are some parts of it that kind of make you uncomfortable, which I think it's a good thing to push yourself to the edge of your comfort zone, because it creates a response. And that's what good storytelling does. It's fantasy because it's set in like the far future, after humanity has just run amok and destroyed the earth and just stopped loving each other and everything. The creator of this world just totally annihilates every human, and the only thing that's left from humanity is the architecture. So you have these buildings, and the earth has sat with no living creatures on it except for the animals, and so you don't have electricity, you don't have computers and cell phones, and the only evidence that you have is what's left of the roads that were carved through the planet and these buildings. And most of them are have fallen apart. The earth has reclaimed itself. And so when I see the earth in this time period that my book is set in, it reminds me of pre-World War I, beautiful buildings, and they had these churches and these cathedrals, and then they had just vast amount of open space because there wasn't new housing developments every 5 feet. So that's said, and because there haven't been any humans on the planet for hundreds of years, everything is overgrown, everything is lush, the planet has basically reclaimed itself. The creator, whose name is Azil, there's two, and they talk to one another, and they have a relationship with one another. And so my male creator is Azil Uzia, and I know it's a mouthful and it kind of sounds funny, but it actually does mean something. And I just call him Azil because it's just easier that way, and he's totally cool with it. And then his beloved, now it's not like a wife, because when I think of wife, I think of a ceremony, a ring, a contract, and she's not that. What she is a part of him. He was so lonely and so just in this dark, vast universe, and he needed something. And so out of this darkness, he created from his own sense of being his beloved. And when she came into the universe, I like to think of it as when she came into the universe, that was like the Big Bang. Because it was like, for him, it was the beginning of life. He now had his companion. He now had a piece of him. He now had his beloved. And that's what she is. She is literally a piece of him, an extension of him. And so she's not a wife. She's his beloved, a piece of him. And I thought that was really, I like that. You know, and this is a romance. So the idea that out of his deepest, darkest sense of depression and loneliness, this spark happened, and he brought her into the world. So yeah, so those are the creators, and the relationship that they have with one another is a partnership. You know, they create everything. So there's a whole story on it inside the book, and it's just kind of like DanaG was like, hey, you know, let's make love, and out of this love they created the earth, and then all the things of the earth, and it's just a really neat story, and you have to read the book to get the whole story. But it was a lot of fun writing it. It was a lot of fun imagining it and bringing it into reality. So that's the creators plural, and it's Azil and DanaG. DanaG is an actual goddess. I took what I could find as far as who she is, and I kind of put a little twist on it. Kind of pulled from all these different belief systems and religions, and out of it, you know, I kind of put it all into a pot, stirred it around, and blam, there is the beginning of the world that I have created. They're living happily, and everything is wonderful, and they have this beautiful world, and everything is going right. And then DanaG is like, hey, we have this planet, we have all these trees, and we have all these animals, and we have all the plants, and this, that, and the other thing. And she's like, how about life? Let's bring life into the planet. he's like, okay, you know, if this is going to make you happy, I want you to be happy. And if this is the way that it's going to work out for you to be happy, then this is what we're going to do. Azil makes love to DanaG, and every time they make this passionate love to one another, something's created. And so they make love, and the first human is created, and it just grows from that. And DanaG looks down on their creation, and she becomes like really sad and really upset. And you know, Azil is like, what's the matter? You know, what can I do to make you happy? Is there something missing? And she points down to the humans with these swollen pregnant bellies, and she's like, hey, I want to experience that, you know? And he's like, but you're a goddess, you don't need to, there's no need to get pregnant through excruciating pain. And she's like, no, dude, this is what I want. I really want to experience this. She felt like she didn't have a connection to these women and these animals because she had never experienced it. And so he was like, all right, if that's what you want. And that's so once again they make love, and this time, instead of just something being created, she actually gets pregnant, and she experiences the whole pregnancy, morning sickness. If you can imagine every single symptom of being pregnant, that's what the mother goddess experiences, because she wants to be able to connect with her humans. And so she births the sons of DanaG. The sons of DanaG are celestial, I can never say this word correctly, celestial children. They are her celestial children. And the best way that I can describe them is they're like angels, but they're not angels, okay? So the sons of DanaG have these magical powers, but they're limited, and they've each been given a job. So they're like the stewards of the land, and their jobs are pretty important. Like, some of them are stewards of the animals, some of them keep the peace amongst the people, some of them are warriors that protect the humans from each other, and they're given special powers, and they can do some very amazing things, but they're also very limited. So if one of DanaG's sons goes into the realm of another son, his powers are limited. So, for example, let's say they can fly, and in their realm that they lord over, or that they steward over, their powers are full force, and they can use them how they wish to use them. But once they cross the border into someone else's realm, unless they have permission from the lord of that realm, their powers are pretty much useless. So Azil has limited himself. The creator of this entire thing has limited himself, because he doesn't want to be like an overlord. He doesn't want his creation to completely depend on him. And so he's put limitations on himself, he's put limitations on DanaG, he's put limitations on their children. DanaG gets herself into some trouble with her husband by creating life, and they promised each other that they would not create life without consulting one another. And she just went ahead and created life without saying anything. And so there's this moment in time where Aziel gets so angry with her that he actually puts her in like jail. He punishes her, and he actually kills his sons because they were conspiring against him with DanaG. And so he kills his sons, and not dead, not killed them as in they died, killed them as in he banished them to the nothingness, and they're prisoners there. Like any good evil doer, the sons of DanaG who were banished into the nothingness plot an escape plan. And what they do is one of them finds a way to escape the nothingness. And so they go into the world undetected, and they cause so much trouble. And this big war breaks out, and Aziel has to step in and break his own rules in order to stop the humans and these banished sons of DanaG from destroying everything. And so what he decides to do is he just wipes out everything. He wipes it all out. Everything dies. Not everything. All the humans die. Except for a very small portion who are left to write down what is going on. And so this small group of people go out and they start to write down the stories of this mass genocide of the human race, why it happened, and it's basically to redeem themselves. They have to write the stories of the destruction of humanity. And these books are taken and they're kept in a very safe place by Aziel and DanaG, and they are basically used as holy texts, as a reminder for when the next round of humans comes into the world. This is how they messed up the first time around. Don't do it again. And that is where our story begins. Our story takes place in a futuristic world. Well, a futuristic Earth. Aziel kills his sons, except for one. And he makes a deal with this one son. So he'll bring back this one thing that his son is pining for. And you'll find out what it is in my book. But the deal is, if he promises that he will do good and teach the people and keep the peace and be faithful, he won't destroy the world anymore, and he'll give him back this one thing. He's just destroyed. The son of DanaG, the one surviving son who is faithful to his father, he says, hey, let's start over. They bring humanity back using these texts to teach the humans, hey, this is what happened last time, don't do it again. Aziel and DanaG take the first humans that they create and they basically raise them themselves. So they're on Earth, they're teaching these people, they're raising them, they're providing for them, and what ends up happening is the world starts to repopulate. There's more humans coming into the world. The sons of DanaG are starting to come back. They're growing and they're teaching, and there's there's just so much going on. And basically the earth is being repopulated. The population's growing. There's now 18 sons of DanaG that are lords of these realms. And they're not lords. So they're not like kings and princes and stuff like that. They're more like stewards. So they protect the land. They protect their people. Everything seems to be going really well. And the people are happy. And everyone's living in peace and harmony. Until one day, things kind of start to change, and people start to notice that there's some of the stewards of the earth are kind of acting weird, and some of them are disappearing altogether, and they don't know why. Like, they can't figure it out. Like, it's just weird. And that is where our story picks up. Our story begins after, it's been about 1,000 years, after Azil just wipes everything off the planet and is like, I'm done with you guys, this sucks. They have decided that they like the way that their earth runs. They don't want to change it. And so they have technology, but they've decided, based on what they read in their holy texts and in the history of the first humans, they've decided that they don't want to go back to that. They don't want weapons of mass destruction and flying tin cans and, so they don't want all that stuff. They just want to keep it nice and simple. It's going good. People are healthy. Don't mess up a good thing. But once these changes start being made, they're so subtle that the people of Earth they're just kind of like, oh, okay, that's weird, but we're not going to really worry about it. There's nothing to worry about. So our story picks off there, and the protagonist in my story is a woman named Mina, and she's trying to figure some shit out, like all of us. We get to this point in our lives where we're just like, what am I doing with myself? So she is 20 years old. She's on the cusp of her 21st birthday, and she's very level-headed. She's very much about planning and organization and, just very disciplined. She's a very disciplined woman. She doesn't like frivolousness. And Mina, for a few years now, has been hiding a secret from her beloved aunt and uncle. And it's becoming a very heavy secret to bear. She is starting to have these dreams, like very vivid dreams, and she knows that her uncle, because her parents died in this tragic accident, and she doesn't have anything. Like, she doesn't have any money, she doesn't have anything to fall on, and so she is at the mercy of her uncle and her aunt to arrange some type of a match. And even though she knows it's inevitable, and she's hoping that her aunt and uncle will give her a good match, somebody that she can, fall in love with and be happy with, she knows that the possibility of a marriage of convenience is very probable. Having this internal conflict of, she knows it's inevitable, she feels like she's indebted to her family for taking care of her and being so merciful on her, but at the same time, she has plans. She has dreams that she wants to achieve, and it's not necessarily just, marrying someone to increase her family's fortunes. And she starts having these dreams, and she is just crazy. And then in the meantime, her sister cousin, who is very flirtatious and just way out there, always going out, always hanging out with the guys, always being in the wrong place, doing things that Mina is just like, I can't believe you would do this with these people. Holy cow. You know, she's just kind of like, okay, life is what it is, and I'm gonna live my life, and I'm just gonna do what my dad tells me to, because that's the way it is. And she's very envious. She's almost like spiteful of the fact that Mina's there. Like, she loves her, but at the same time, she's like, well, you know, Mina doesn't have to do half the things that is expected of her. And it's because Mina is not a daughter, she's a niece. She's just kind of like a spare. So anyway, it's decided that she is going to go on a trip as an ambassador to her family. And out of the blue, a family friend, a long lost family, shows up, comes back into town, and is like, hey, you know, we would like to revisit our old business arrangements. Let's have dinner. Our sons can meet your daughter, you know, type of thing. And Mina's world starts to change, and she starts having these very vivid dreams that are driving her insane. She starts experiencing things that are new to her, and she wants to let loose, but she's so rigid that she can't. And she's trying really, really hard to maintain homeostasis. She's trying really hard because she was taught one thing, but her soul, her spirit is screaming at her that what she knows to be true is not true. So she goes on this epic journey, and it's one of self-discovery. She starts to unravel the mystery behind her parents' death. She starts to find out from people around her that the story she's been given isn't necessarily the actual truth. So it's an adventure. So it's like, it's so complex, and I stumble over my feet all the time trying to describe what it is, because it's so complex that it's just like, it's hard to describe it unless you are sitting there reading it and following along, because there's so much. It's so much. And she longs to find out what happened to her parents, the truth, and she wants to find out who she really is and what her place in the universe is. And her heart is like leading her in one direction, and she's trying to fight that, because she's like, no, it's that I don't want that. I need to focus on this. And so yeah, so it's an adventure. I like to think of it as a journey of self-discovery. It's just amazing. Gosh, I wish I could actually formulate the words. So, but you do. There's lots of different things. There's these magical places that they go to. There's a lot of, I don't want to call it supernatural, but there's a lot of the physical world, and then there's a lot of the spiritual world, and it goes into how they're one and the same, and how sometimes we are taught what others think we need to know to keep us conformed to how they see is right. And so, yeah. So it's just it's an epic journey. There's graphic adult content. There's magical creatures. There's all different kinds of culture. It's just amazing. It's amazing. And I have traveled from coast to coast. I have met some incredible people. And I've just taken a little bit of everything that I have seen from the world around me, and I've lumped it into this universe, and it's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. You're gonna love it. My release date, it will be available on ebook, print on demand. It's going to be available October 13th. That is the release date. It is going to be available. I finally decided after 2 years of working on this project that it will be available to the public October 13th. That's my dad's birthday. That's Mini Monster's birthday. It's one of my favorite days of the year because if my dad hadn't been born, I wouldn't have been born, and Mini Monster wouldn't have been born. So I'm very excited for that day. And you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. So this is my first introduction to my book, The Awakening, Love Eternal. I know it's a jumbled mess. Bear with me. I'm gonna make more videos talking about it. You're gonna fall in love with Mina, Cassius, Alexi, Helena, Adrian. I mean, there's so many awesome people in my book. It's gotten so big. This was supposed to be a standalone book, and it's gotten so big that it actually has a series. And it's like I have to have binders now in order to keep everyone in line. Otherwise, I would just go completely mental trying to keep it all organized. Now to answer that question, what do Edgar Allan Poe, Gertrude Stein, Beatrix Potter, Mark Twain, and Walt Whitman have in common with me? Well, I had one person say they were all published authors, and that is true. They are all published authors. However, the other thing we have in common is we are self-published authors. And I discovered that nifty little fact in this book that I picked up on Amazon. I subscribed to the Book Doctors channel, and they put out this book, The Essential Guide to Getting Your Book Published. Ring light problems. So yeah, so I found a bunch of very interesting facts in here and some good tips on how to self-publish and how to traditionally publish. And granted, I personally like having more freedoms and more control over my story and the direction that it's going in because it's my story, that I am definitely going to continue sticking with self-publish. So, if you didn't know that, now you do. Until next time, you do you.